People are starved for attention, starved. And especially as there's more remote work, there's a whole new generation coming into the workplace that's learning in a time that's a little bit turbulent, I'll say. And what better time just to get really comfortable and intentional about using our words powerfully. We underestimate the value of a kind word. I'm convinced of it. And people are starving for kind words. It costs us nothing to give them.
Here you are, listening to Relationships at Work, a leadership podcast helping you build workplace connection, improve culture, and avoid blind spots. I'm your host, Russel Lolacher, communications leadership expert, a couple of decades of experience in both those areas, and a whole heap of curiosity, just like you, on how we can make the workplace a better place. You found yourself in the fifth of 6 entries into our Workhuman Live series. It's been really good. These are all taken from conversations I had earlier in the year in Colorado at Workhuman Live's conference out there. I was at their one last year as well, and this one is great. It's pretty good. There's a lot of really smart thinkers out there, and the HR space is certainly one that is trying to figure it out these days. DEI, AI, absolutely the most vocal topics throughout the conference. I think it's been like that for a year or so, but it just seems even more so right now with the world climate that it is. But you can't go to a Workhuman conference without talking about recognition. That is the DNA. That is the lifeblood of the Workhuman world. That's what their whole platform is all about. Really interesting stuff, actually. So I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with one of their team to dig into all things recognition. Naomi Dishington. She knows her stuff. Really interesting, really great chat that we had, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Really getting into how recognition impacts, good and bad, workplace culture. It's an interesting topic. Hold on. And on the show today, we have Naomi Dishington, and here is why she is awesome. She is the Workhuman Consulting Practice Director, where she partners with global organizations to develop engaged, resilient workplaces through connection. She also specializes in designing strategic recognition programs to foster high trust and high-performing teams. And she's worked in career management and professional development coaching over the last decade. And we've got her right here at Workhuman. All right, we're hidden away in Workhuman Live right now. A little quieter because it's the hustle and bustle outside the doors. Thank you for joining me. I've got Naomi Dishington with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You excited to do this, Naomi?
Yes.
Is this the second podcast you've ever done, Naomi?
Not a chance.
Okay, perfect.
Brimming with excitement.
Seasoned
experience.
pro.
Yes.
Seasoned pro. Perfect. Naomi's from Workhuman, and we're going to be talking about recognition. We're going to talk about its connection to inform the culture. Very familiar topics on this show. But before we get anywhere, you're not off the hook. You have to answer the question I ask all of my guests, Naomi, which is, what is your best or worst employee experience?
I will share one of each because the juxtaposition is interesting. I can remember vividly my first week on a job, not my job at Workhuman, in which I was walking to the restroom for a quick minute. And in order to get there, I had to pass my boss's office. And she said, "Oh, would you just pop in here for a minute?" So I popped in and sat down opposite her at her desk. And immediately she started talking something very deeply work-related for my onboarding. And I was like, "Oh, excuse me, I don't have anything to write with." And she just put her hands on the table and she said, "Don't ever come into my office without a pencil." And I was stunned because I wasn't planning to go into her office. We didn't have a meeting booked. And that set the tone. It helped me understand instantly, this is a different leader than the leader who interviewed me, and I'm gonna have some adjusting to do. So contrast that with a few years later, I was hired into a role that felt like a stretch at the time. And my leader said to me on my first day, "There's nothing you can say that's gonna lose us a deal. Go for it. We trust you. We hired you because we trust you. Bring it." And I just kind of had that same moment of shock, like, wow. And the two very different experiences were both incredibly meaningful, and you can imagine which one has really inspired me to be the kind of leader that infuses the team with that much confidence from day one. And it just was a surge of, wow, I want to do really good for this person, right? I want to make that person so proud, and glad she made the decision to hire me.
Absolutely. And it's also funny how we don't realize something is as bad as it is until we see how good it can be, and vice versa.
100%.
So yeah, and I appreciate that because I really love defining things, because we don't do a great job of defining things in the workplace a lot of the time. We'll say leadership, but are like, okay, but what do you mean by leadership? So to hear you talk about how they are defining onboarding, how they are going to define your experience in those initial moments. Yeah, and how long ago was that?
More than 10 years now, the first one. Yeah.
And you're still remembering it
as
I asked you this
vividly.
question and you were like...
Instant, yeah, as vividly as possible. And I think words are so powerful. But again, like with onboarding, we might think of onboarding in HR as a time period in which an employee kind of comes up to speed, right? And there might be a curriculum that accompanies that. Tick, 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 they're onboarded. What that person, I think humans are like we have little antennas on our heads when we arrive in a new environment. And those antennae are scanning quickly and immediately for what's really the real deal here, right? And that's the culture. That's what our antenna pick up immediately, which is intangible at times, but that's what I think is going to be fun to talk about.
And it's important, and I hear what you're saying from the onboarding thing. That's why it's so important that we don't treat onboarding like a one-off. Because we talk about employee journeys, and then we go, onboard, we'll care about you for a week, I'll see you when you quit.
Exactly.
Like really,
Maybe
it's not yeah, maybe, but it's not a holistic journey. It is a 1 week of this compact little, we're gonna put our best foot forward, all these promises, and then it doesn't translate into week 2, month 3, month 6.
It's like, okay, you're on your own.
Yeah, didn't we do onboarding well?
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, but you didn't do the employee journey very well at all. Yeah, and I think recognition, I'm super curious as we get into this topic is, and first of all, I'm getting ahead of myself. How would you define recognition?
That is such a great question, and I've never been asked it, and I work at a recognition company. I mean, the way we think about it is calling out the good work that we see somebody do, and not just the good work, right? The who they are in the midst of that, right? It was an amazing thing that you did. You leveraged and then really calling out the specifics that they brought to it and the impact that it had on the business. So the what and the how is recognition done right, in my opinion.
So recognition of someone say, you did a great job, and left it at that isn't recognition.
In my view,
Sure.
It's not enough.
Okay. Oh, fair comment. Right. Because you need to connect it to a dot of, but did you really see me?
Did you see me? Did you see what it took? Did you notice the impact that it made? Did you notice that it really embodied the core value, XYZ, that we're looking to drive? Yeah, it is like someone saying that's a nice dress. Well, is it a nice, it could be a nice dress on anybody, right? Be specific, be meaningful, be authentic, be detailed, be timely. When does the recognition happen? That's even a piece. If you're telling me 6 months after the fact, oh, by the way, that was a really good thing you did 6 months, like, it loses something. It loses the punch, right?
So to connect that to the larger culture, how do you feel, and I love that you brought up values, because so often organizations will say they have values, but it's really just on the website or a poster in HR, as opposed to, but can we operationalize them? Can we connect them to be meaningful? How do you feel recognition could be that connective tissue? Hey, if you're enjoying the insights from our guests, you'll love our Raw Notes newsletter. It's packed with guest takeaways, the resources that inspire them, and my own tips on how we as leaders can be better humans for the humans that we're responsible for. Go to relationshipsatworkshow.com and subscribe now and help the workplace be more human.
So I thought about that, and I've been thinking about that a lot. I think recognition moments can be signals in a lot of noise of communication. They can be signals about what's really meaningful. They can signal things like our core values, yes, and in our mindset, we would build into any strategic recognition platform the values and behaviors we're looking to drive. That's the whole purpose. So yes, it would amplify the core values, and it would personalize them. It would humanize them, right? Take that value of integrity off the wall. And what does that mean? So what does that look like, having integrity on a day-to-day basis? And what does it look like as an exec? And what does it look like as a frontline manager? And what does it look like if you're on the tarmac at 3 a.m. working for an airline? And who sees it, right? So it's really flushing it out in a way that's important. I also think the recognition moments, if you think of them as pieces of a tapestry, it's all coming together. When you stand back and look at that, you're seeing a piece of art. If you zoom in, you're going to see things like, moments that helped create psychological safety for someone, moments that made recognition feel more consistent across the group, not just for the high achiever. You're going to start to notice a complexity, a depth of that culture, because it's owned by everyone in it and not a poster on the wall.
Fair.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. But we also use culture as a broad brush when we both know most organizations have 17,000 subcultures. How do you align recognition when it's not just one homogenous culture in most organizations?
Yes. So I think what I would say is recognition informs culture, but culture also informs us. So it's a two-way dynamic as I think about it. For example, culture tells me, go back to onboarding, day one, culture tells me, it helps me set the tone for behavior. How do we do things around here, I think, is somebody's definition of culture. I can't remember the author of that phrase. It's kind of this invisible hand that guides how we do things and how we show up. And we learn it quickly. And Amy Cuddy said, we evaluate people subconsciously in an instant on two things, on warmth and competence. And we don't even know we're doing it. But I think we do the same thing with culture, right? So we're informing it, it's informing us. And once we kind of have a sense, it guides our decision making, it guides our behavior, it influences our priorities, and it gives us as a communal a shared sense of purpose. So yes, recognition might feel different. We all might have subcultures, but if we honor the human that we're working with, I think we can align, right? It can synthesize some of those cultures around stuff that we all agree is important.
And that adds another layer to it, is the diversity side of it as well. Because even though I'm talking about subculture, that's two colleagues can be a culture. But then you bring from outside the organization into it, and what you like to be recognized as could be very different than how I recognize, based on geography, based on so many different factors. So how is that also to inform culture for good or for bad?
It's really a great question, and I'm hesitant to open this can of worms, but I'm going to.
Do it.
So I'm very sensitive to the nuances of culture. I grew up in a very primitive environment where we were the only outsiders from the West. They had no exposure at all. So we lived there in this jungle environment, and my parents learned the language and translated and everything else. One fascinating element of that, and the reason I'm telling you is because in that culture, they didn't have a word for thank you. There was no word. So there are humans on this planet for whom they feel gratitude deeply, but they don't say the word. And so coming from an American or Western perspective, that's crazy, right? It's absurd. But there's inferences in the culture, and there are manners of behavior. It's reciprocal. You gave me, something last week, I'm going to give you something next week. We don't even have to talk about it. It's assumed. And it's deeply felt, right? So there's that on one end. We work with folks all over the world at Workhuman. I'm back now to modern day. We work with folks from, certain organizations that would say, well, we feel uncomfortable about that. In our culture, if a manager gives me something as a recognition, she'll do it privately behind closed doors so that nobody knows, right? Because that would make me stand out. It's just fascinating, and you have cultures where the reciprocal nature of recognition feels very natural, and in our system, that might flag as fraud, like someone's trying to game the system. You give me, I'll give you, right? But in fact, in their culture, it's totally the norm. So we're sensitive to those things, and that's where I think the Workhuman consulting practice comes into play in a really rich way, because we've had those experiences. We understand, okay, we're going to roll this out globally. The company's made that decision. Here's how we're going to help you communicate that in a way that feels culturally relevant where you are, as best as we can, right? Some cultures prefer to receive recognition as a group. Others prefer the individual glory. Some like it public, shared on the company awards feed with everyone chiming in their congrats. Other people would rather die and want that privacy setting, right? And really value that. So I think to honor the preferences of every individual in the world is a challenge in a piece of technology. But we really strive as best we can to make it feel meaningful in whatever the context is that you're living and working. And I think that's important.
Agreed. I also want you to put your black hat on for a minute and get a little negative with me, because we're talking about how recognition can inform the culture. Yeah. That informing a culture doesn't necessarily have to be a positive thing sometimes.
True. So, absolutely.
So I'm kind of wanting to put you to think of it from that perspective of either lack of recognition or the wrong type of recognition, and how that can inform culture.
This is so fun. Like, how to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I have so many examples. Here's one. Naomi, thank you so much for coming with us on this sales event. Your beautiful smile surely helped us win the deal. That's a literal, we see that, okay? That's one. It's like, is that really what you're trying to say? Or another one could be, thank you, Russell, for staying overnight at work to make sure that project got through by morning. It's like, do we really want to be promoting that kind of behavior? Because you have to assume others in the organization are going to see that. Is that what we're saying? Is that the culture we're trying to drive? There's that. There's also the obvious one where the bright lights, the people who are front and center, get a lot of recognition, and it starts to feel like a popularity contest. That's another really good way to get it wrong, where you're not considering who else had a hand in that, who was behind the scenes contributing to that. Gender comes into play. We see this. Our Workhuman IQ team has uncovered some really uncomfortable data that shows, in fact, men nominate their male peers at a higher level than women. That was sort of like, okay, duh. But what was shocking was women nominate women with less economic value attached than they give to their male counterparts. So these are the kinds of things you can start to see. Recognition can also be a mirror for organizations, which is fascinating. And that's where you get into the human intelligence that we've been talking loudly about this year, because it reveals types of insights like that. How else would you know that?
And the thing I always love about data is data's great. You have to do something with it, though.
Indeed.
Like, having that data and information, great, but there's a lot of people that will ignore it because it doesn't fit their narrative. I don't see this, so it must not be true, regardless of what data is being presented. 100%. So how do we approach people? Like, I think of the birthday card analogy, where we pass a birthday card around and people like, or somebody leaving an organization, I'm like, oh, everybody else says happy birthday, I need to say something else. Oh, the pressure. Oh, or good luck on your next chapter of your career. Oh, 17 people wrote that. Oh, what am I? But that's the thing. And recognition falls under that in a lot of ways, because some people aren't the extroverts, or they're not used to doing the work. So in order to help with their culture, or help with the recognition, help with that connection, they're not built that way. How do we help them? Because they're contributing to the culture, just in a very different way.
Completely. Some folks, it will roll off the tongue, right? We can all think of people in our workplaces who are just naturally exuberant, cheerleaders, champions of others. Those aren't the ones we're worried about. What we designed for in our platform as one piece of scaffolding, right, to help those folks, is in that moment where you have that white space and you have to type, and you know what you type is likely going to be on the company awards feed for others to see with your name and your face on it. So there's some trepidation there for some. What we have built into the platform is a guide, an advisor, a moment, not AI to say, write it this way. It's not a ChatGPT feature, but it's, hey, great job, bruh, isn't quite hitting
Does it say bruh?
the value. People say
it does.
People say that
Okay.
all
No,
the time.
I know they do.
Right? We see it all the time. My kids call me bro. Like, so.
I just needed to know that was in there.
So in that moment, it could be a little encouragement to say, hey, add some detail. What behavior did you see? Be more specific, so that when it lands, the person feels, okay, I was seen, right? I was really seen. And the rest of the organization has the benefit of seeing, that's what good looks like. That's what we're talking about. If I'm a newly onboarding employee, the best place for me to go is the company awards feed. Look, okay, what does it take to get a pat on the back? What do we really prize? And if I'm newly promoted and I'm taking on a team and I want to quickly get to understand the nature of the dynamics on my team, look at their recognition from their last manager, from their last team, it gives you such a beautiful insight quickly about who that person is, what they're known for within the org, and where they excel.
I'm curious how you approach leadership with this as it changes. So change management, say they're working with a recognition program, but you have a great leader that did all this, and then the next leader is like, I don't do that. That's not how I lead in my leadership style. Yeah. But the organization's like, but this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. But the team's gonna suffer because that leader, how do you approach that leader who is not used to doing that sort of thing?
So I think self-reflection is the best way for leaders to see. So if we can show them without saying it. So if you can see a dashboard of your peer leaders and you can see that you're...
So shaming. A little bit.
Social pressure. How about social pressure?
Sure, no, that works.
Humans
Absolutely,
respond to social pressure.
Sure,
You said
and
we
shaming.
can wear a black hat, so I'm
You can,
so, okay.
Absolutely.
So a little bit of light social pressure.
No, it's light.
Applied carefully, and the manager will opt in to see it.
Absolutely.
So you have that kind of open mindset when you're going in. If I see that my manager peers are delivering recognition in a much greater way than I am, I have something to think about there. No right or wrong necessarily. What also works is data. This is a true story actually. In one organization, there's a plant in the Southeast, and there's a plant in Nova Scotia. One of those managers is an expert recognition giver and very generous. One is not. Launched at the same time, one plant starts to see really increased productivity, better retention, fewer absences, and we start looking, oh, well, that's interesting. The champion team from that high-performing plant went to visit their friends in Nova Scotia and shared some examples like, hey, this is what we're doing, and look, it's working. So that light social pressure becomes a coaching opportunity. Like, hey, we all want to do better. You want to hit your metrics. Have you considered the impact this might have? We love to interact with what we call recognition science deniers because converting them is really a fun challenge. And data is usually the thing that does it.
The reason I brought that up is because consistency is what I'm most worried about, is that you will have this great leader who's great at recognition, and then somebody with a different style comes in and doesn't. So you're seeing a team that is used to working at this level and getting recognized for this level. Mm-hmm. Do you think that leaders should be rewarded for being better recognizers? Like just sort of from an idea of you're doing well. Like I'm just trying to recognizing behavior is sort of from a consistency standpoint, because if this is the way you want your culture to go into embracing as recognition being an important part of it, is it an... I love the data because it tells you basically if you do this, here's the path forward. Exactly. But is that enough, do you feel, for leadership? It should be, but do you feel that's enough for leadership to go to buy in? Or do you think there's some reward system that needs to be a part of that?
I think there's complexity in that question. Yeah. I think there's personality. And that's something you're never gonna equalize personality. You're just never gonna do it. So fine. What I think would be a better goal is rather than striving to get all leaders on the same benchmark, I would rather democratize recognition. So now, if I have a poor leader who's not likely to recognize, but I have a really empowered team of 10 who are recognizing, and that leader has to see every one of those recognition moments happening because they might come to him or her for approval, now there's an awareness. So, because managers can be a single point of failure. If your manager didn't see it, it didn't happen. By democratizing it, you really do, that's culture, right? That's not, because now everybody's in. And you're sending a message of trust to everyone on those teams, that the organization trusts you enough to call out the good work that you see. Now that employee feels a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership, and don't forget, everyone who gets to nominate also sees the benefit. Not just the recipient. We think about dollars and cents and comp and ben and all that, but really the nominator also has a lift in engagement, a sense of pride, brand ambassador, etc. So that goes somewhere, that positivity. It's a huge investment in our people at all levels.
So without going into, you need to set up a whole recognition program, maybe it's a tomorrow thing. Maybe somebody's listening to this now and going, I want this to be part of our culture. I need this to be part of our culture. Is there a baby step forward to at least have a better understanding of where attention should be paid?
I love it. I think we could all do better just generally in our lives practicing gratitude. That is not wasted. You go and order your coffee and that is going to come out of you into the world, right? So that's missional, big picture. Smaller, more tactical, yes. Start each meeting with a moment of gratitude. Show up to your next team call looking for what's going right. Calendar, if it's not a habit yet, make it one. Put 10 minutes on your calendar once a week, and that is time for you to reflect on your week. Who had your back? Who did something worth calling out? You will feel so great if you send an email to someone at the very least, right? We're changing the world and we're changing ourselves.
I think this is also one of those things where you can start to practice in your personal life. Like with journaling, to your point about being tactile about it, is like, yes. I mean, gratitude journal, roll your eyes all you like, whoever's listening, but they're super freaking impactful. You just have to do it, but to take that and be grateful on a daily basis for your friends, your family, and then bring that, because again, they're just humans. Nothing changes just because you turned on a computer or you walked into an office. And if you can bring that in with you, then you already have a framework to how to express and understand gratitude in the workplace.
People are starved for attention, starved. And especially as there's more remote work, there's a whole new generation coming into the workplace that's learning in a time that's a little bit turbulent, I'll say.
Nice.
And what better time just to get really comfortable and intentional about using our words powerfully. Like you started this in a really great way because now I can pull those negative and positive words that I heard 10 years ago to mind in 2 minutes. We underestimate the value of a kind word. I'm convinced of it. And people are starving for kind words. It costs us nothing to give them on a human level. You're welcome.
That's it. We're done.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And that will bring a close to the 5th of our 6-part series at Workhuman Live. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Russel Lolacher. This, of course, is Relationships at Work, a leadership podcast helping you build workplace connection, improve culture, and avoid blind spots. I really hope you're enjoying your Friday. Well, this is when this got released. Who knows when you're listening to it, but I hope it's a good day for you. What I'm really having a good time doing myself is these latest renditions of the show. We used to stick to the normal format that traditional podcasts use, which is the whole interview session. We're not doing that anymore. We are, but we're breaking it down to be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more useful. So instead of having to sit and listen to a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation, they're focused a little bit more under 10, maybe 10, 15 minutes each. You get clarity, you get relationship with ourselves, you get relationships with our teams, relationship with the culture. Those are the themes each of our conversations fall under, and that's how I lay them out Monday to Thursday. So I hope you're enjoying this latest version of the podcast. It was really good feedback that I got from you on what you're looking for, what you need from a leadership podcast, from a workplace culture podcast. So I really hope you find this a little bit more useful. And a great way to tell me is to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. hello@russellolacher.com. That's the best way to contact me. Other than on social, I'm all over the place. You can find me easily enough there. But other than that, I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to connecting with you again on Monday. All right, take care.